Welcome to the Nerve Guys podcast, where we discuss movement and well-being from the brain's point of view. Hosted by Gareth Kelly and James McCambridge, this week's episode is sponsored by the Neuro, a wearable vision and balance training tool designed to develop posture, focus, and flow. More info at the end of the episode.
So how do you
Yeah.
balance neuro training? Well, how do you balance any training?
Yeah.
You don't
Like, do
like
you
it?
look at it? Do
Don't
you look
do
at
it.
it as, I guess, it's the big one that most people talk about is injury prevention training. Like, how much injury prevention training do you need to do? And are you still going to get injured if you do it?
Well, yeah, you are. You're still going to get injured. Injury prevention training is a very good marketing tool. You don't know when you're going to get injured because you don't know when you're going to trip over that rock or fall off that step, or the weight's just you're going to lift something and the weight's just going to move in a different pattern than you can tolerate, and you're going to get injured. You cannot prevent injury. There's no such thing as injury prevention training. There is injury mitigation training. So you basically give yourself a good foundation and a good ability to move and a good ability to process and everything, so that when you do get injured, the recovery is quicker and maybe the injury isn't as bad. Do you know what I mean? So there's no such thing as injury prevention training. That's bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that as well with injury, when people say, we gotta do this so people don't get injured, and it's always so important that people don't get injured. And it's like, if you make an airbag that saves people at 100 miles an hour, people will be like, oh sweet, I'm safe, so I'm gonna go 105 miles an hour just to see what happens.
Yeah.
And then everybody always wants to push the limits, and like athletes do it all the time because they want to win. So as soon as you make the bar safe at one level, then they just go to the next one. But everybody else who's not like an Olympian also just wants to be better. So like whatever it is that you're dealing with, you go, oh yeah, well, I could just do it like this and keep myself safe, but I'm gonna go to the next level anyway. So yeah, it's not really a thing to say you can get rid of the injuries in the first place. And the same with like the injury prevention. It's a bit like insurance. Like you pay insurance for bad things happening, but you're not going to stop them happening. It just makes it not as bad when they do.
Yep. And the problem is, I would look at adding the neuro training into any kind of injury mitigation or injury prevention training as it's like insurance. It's not going to stop the bad things happening, but sometimes the insurance company will do everything they can not to pay out. So that's
Yeah.
what happens if you don't do any kind of foundational kind of thing, and you don't get yourself into a generally overall well-functioning, well-processing state. Is your insurance company, i.e. your body, doesn't pay out. You want an insurance company that'll pay out to make the damage less painful. So you want some kind of routine. And also, let's face it, everyone's talking about everyone should do this type of training. Everyone should do this training. Everyone should do the type of training that they like and that they enjoy. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. You're just going to bitch about it and gurn about it. Maybe do it once in a blue moon and then wonder why you get hurt. Do something you enjoy, and it won't feel like you have to do the weird preparation drills or all this crap. Have fun. And then if you want to get better at it, find out the areas that you can get better at it in. That may be neuro, it may not be neuro at all. It might just be a couple of physical things. It might be things like that. I know everything is based in neuro, but it's not a magic pill. You only do it either. I personally do it for warm-ups. So I don't use it in my training anymore. I just use it as warm-up.
Yeah.
Or if I get injured, that's the level I'm at, and that's how I enjoy using it. I know other people like you, for your sport, you'll use it quite often because it's part of your training. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it. You need to figure out where it fits into your life and add it in. For Jesus, you might not even need it at all. I doubt it. Like, most people do need some form of it, but you might not, or you might just not want to do it, and you're happy with just pushing the physicality aspect of it as far as it'll go. knowing that it won't get to its full potential without the neuro, but just happy enough doing it. It doesn't matter, whatever you like, really.
I think it is like that, and it's that thing of what were you trying to do when you came to get the neuro stuff? What was it you were trying to achieve in the first place? And you wouldn't have looked it up if that was going really well. So there's obviously a problem there. So really all it is how much do you need to fix the problem? And then you go and continue to do the thing that you want to do. And yet, like, I do neuro stuff all the time, a little bit because it's what I do, but then also just because I'm such a massive nerd about that on its own, I'll literally do it just to be like, oh, I wonder what would happen if I do these things together. I always found one of the weirdest ones was anytime I've ever gone to a Pilates class, I think they're the worst for it, where they will say, yeah, Pilates, most important thing, we've got all of these connections between all the different muscles and we need to train all of them so that they work perfectly. And I'm like, right, first of all, you're doing your entire Pilates class lying on your back, which that's the only time I never need to be strong is when I'm lying down.
Because that is famously how humans move around the world.
Yeah. And then it's that thing of like, all right, well, and then if you've got so many connections, how much time is this all going to take? Like, you want to be good at Pilates because you're a Pilates instructor, so it makes sense. Everybody's got to have something in their life, so it makes sense that they want to get good at that. And maybe some of the people who are coming to see you, that is their main form of activity. That's the thing that they enjoy. That's the thing they like doing. So yeah, get good at Pilates. But for everybody else who's doing it, it's just like, well, as soon as you fix the problem for what you want it to be doing, why are you still like, maybe you can keep a little bit of it as like the injury mitigation side of things, but it's not necessarily supposed to be like
A
a
doctrine.
lifelong thing.
Yeah, it's not a doctrine. It's not something you have to follow. It's not like the WEC method or fucking ATG or Pilates or the McGill method of bracing your back for everything because I'm taking a fucking shit. I need to brace my spine for it and be neutral. It doesn't have to be that. You take the bits that you enjoy out of all of these things and the bits that work for you because every brain, every nervous system, and every body's different. So what works for you won't work for somebody else just as much. There is no, I've come up with this revolutionary bullshit. It doesn't exist. You need to learn bits from everything and take the bits that work for you and that you enjoy out of it and apply it to your own life and your own training. Sounds like hard work because it is. So either do it or shut up about it and go read a book instead of going and trying to push yourself to be an athlete. Make up your mind. If you're going to put the work in, find the bits you enjoy, find the bits that work for you, and bring up your overall enjoyment of whatever it is you do, whether it's just going to the gym, running, cycling, being a Pilates professional athlete, whether it's BMX and whatever it is, find the thing you like, find the things that make you good at it, and find the things that you also need to do to get better at it. Don't get sucked into these methodologies, these doctrines, all of this shit. Everything has a bit of a use, but if you just use that, then all of a sudden it all becomes really useless.
Yeah. And one thing I would add maybe to the injury mitigation, usually when people are thinking about that, it's like the sport that you do or the thing where you're likely to get hurt. It's usually when you think of injury mitigation, it's how do you mitigate that kind of stuff. I think the other place that I would add where that
I
kind
want
of
to make
thing
a point about that, but I'll have to
yeah.
caveat.
The other place where that kind of thing might be useful is something that I notice, especially for like really high level athletes, when people specialize super hard in one area, then you find that their body starts to adapt more to that thing than it does to just you moving around in real life. So, like, there was an example that a course I was on, somebody talked about a friend of theirs who played so many video games because they were a e-gamer like athlete, I guess you can call them, maybe. Um, and so he played video games so much, like hours and hours and hours, just at looking at a TV screen. and they went out to dinner, and apparently the guy's anxiety was just through the roof. We might have even talked about it on another podcast where like his peripheral vision was just so bad because it was so honed in on just seeing this one little space that when he was in like a noisy environment, he had to just like jump and look at every single thing that was coming because he couldn't see any of it with his peripheral vision. So I guess the other side of that mitigation type thing is you should probably make yourself good at just like normal life activity. And if you're starting to lose some of those things, so if it's like if your hobbies are all, you know, racing in a car and you're sitting down, so you don't need good balance, but your balance is terrible, that's actually going to affect your day-to-day life when you're walking around. Your brain's going to be stressed. So I guess there's a little bit of that kind of thing. Just make your everyday life be easy to do and not have your brain be stressed by it, and then have the same thing for like the fundamentals of your sport.
Yeah, so that feeds really well into the point I was wanting to make there. So you're saying when you say you play a sport, say you're an athlete, a high level athlete, Sunday league athlete, whatever, say rugby or football or whatever, right? And you're going, oh, injury prevention. Like, how do I recover or not get injured when someone tackles me really hard? Like, how do I not like ankle sprain or my knee doesn't pop out, or how do I stop that? But actually, that's not the question you need to be asking, because that shit's going to happen anyway. You're going to get tackled. It's going to happen at dodgy angles. You're going to be moving at speed. They're going to be moving at speed. Whatever, it's going to happen. What you need to ask yourself is, how can I make my body tolerate the loads that are going to be placed on it? How can I make my body more resilient to unexpected things? And the answer to that is make sure your nervous system feels safe and your body is physically strong enough so that it doesn't freak the hell out when these unexpected things happen. So that's where I put in like the fundamentals of neurotraining, even as simple as joint circles, so your body knows how far you can control a joint in weird positions. That's all neurotraining. But on the flip side of that, I was leading really nicely into that you covered. You need to know when not to do your bloody sport. If all you want to do is, as I said, football, right? It's football, 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 football. Well, how about you adapt to what you do every day? Okay. And if that's the case and you're doing football all the time, or like the e game, or the peripheral vision gets sucked in, then when you're not doing it, you're going to be filled with anxiety. Your body's going to be freaking out and not know how to function properly. And eventually that'll take a toll on you actually doing your sport. So everything will go down the pan. You need to know when to do something. It's not about what more can I do, it's what should I be doing, full stop. Whether I'm doing the sport and outside of the sport, not everything has to be about what more can I do. That's a really vital, vital thing.
Yeah, I saw that specifically actually, since you mentioned football, um, at a Premier League like youth academy that I was at. All of the kids, when they walked, feet were like
Yeah.
super turned out. And just I think because that's the position they're in when they pass the ball all the time. But yeah, they were
The mighty
literally
duck.
walking
Yeah.
like a cross between a duck and a ballet dancer. Like it wasn't as
Yeah.
graceful as ballet when you see they were always turned out, but it was that like, all right, well, it might be good for some aspects of football, but then when are you going to learn to sprint and when are you going to learn all those bits? And then in your real life, you're actually probably going to have some stress and damage to your knees now every time you're going downstairs because now you're
Yeah.
doing that at a weird angle and nobody at your football ground is going to figure out the problem because they're like, yeah, everything you do in football is how you're supposed to do it,
And then
but
there's
you just
strength.
have this knee injury and we
Yeah.
don't know where it's coming from.
And their strength and conditioning coach will then tell them to do shitty ass squats where they're pushing their knees out, externally rotating their hips even more, and they wonder why they're getting loads of lower back pain, hamstring pings, all of that crap. And you're like, oh, maybe you should stop trying to be a sexy penguin and turning your feet out and actually focus on what the brain needs to do outside of that, so you still walk like a normal person. Yeah, it's a risk. It's risk reward. I'm sure a lot of footballers in them youth academies will happily take all of that, the bad knees, the hips, the back pain, to get where they want to in their sport. That's fine. That's done with a really clear reasoning behind it. But if you work in an office 35, 40 hours a week and you're pushing yourself to do triathlon, take a minute, have a think. You're probably in your 30s and 40s, so you can't train with the intensity that your little brain wants you to. So take a minute, think what's going to be actually useful for you. And sometimes that might be not training.
Yep. Yeah. And then, so I guess
I sound really condescending there.
sorry?
I sounded really condescending there, but let's face it, I've seen it so many fucking times. Oops, shit. Yeah, I've seen it so many times that
Yeah.
it's what more can I do? No. It's not what more can you do. It's what in general can you do, and that sometimes means doing less.
Yeah. And I would say, like, I guess to summarize it and round this one up in terms of like what is like the ratio. We've kind of established there's not really a ratio of what you should be doing, but if you have a load of neuro drills that you know, and you're like, well, how often should I do this as a warm up? Number one, I would say test it out. If you do a drill and it makes you better at the thing almost immediately, a bit like what you're doing with the warm up stuff. If you're doing the neuro stuff and then when you go to lift the weight, it gets better, it's easier, it's better to do, then yeah, probably keep doing that. If you don't notice a difference, then the next question you have to ask is there a good reason why it would be useful for me to train this? So I always tell people one of the sort of gaze fixation exercises, where you just stare at your own thumb or just stare at a target for as long as you can. Well, can you do that for longer than you're ever going to need to? So I tell people usually if you can do it for 15 seconds and you have an office job, you're probably never going to come into a situation where you need to do it. You need to be like eyes glued to one spot for longer until you have kids and they learn about staring contests. But then after that, is there a reason why it should be longer? So like I've heard F1 drivers just don't blink the whole time when they race. There's just because blinking takes up so much distance when you're traveling at 300 miles an hour that they actually tend to suffer from chronic dry eyes and stuff like that. So for an F1 driver or for some of the speed cubers and Rubik's cubers I compete with, they don't want to blink because that split seconds actually matters. So then yeah, actually maybe you don't want to do it for 15 seconds. Maybe you need to be able to do it for 2 minutes. But if you can do it for 2 minutes, then you probably don't need to be training it. That's something you're already good at. And so it's just that like figure out, is there a reason why I need to be better at this than I currently am? And if there is, then train it. And if there's no reason why you need to be better at it, then you probably don't need to look at it right now. Like I'd come back in a month and see what's going on. That would be my thoughts. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, so my warm up changes all the time because if I'm doing something in a warm up and say I've been doing it for 4 weeks and it's been having an effect, eventually it's going to stop having an effect. So ditch it and focus on something that does have an effect. Come back to it if ever you need it again. But in general, if you're doing stuff right, you do the exercise, it has an effect on whatever you're going to do after your warm up. So you're always leveling up. So ideally, unless something happens to bring you back to where you were, like an injury or something, or you don't train for edges or something, you should be able to move on past that. So your warm up should be ever changing. And the thing is, as well, everyone will be like, "How many exercises should I do in it? How should I do this?" Go and figure it out. Simple. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying this stuff is useful. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your body's like. I don't know what your nervous system's like. So go figure it out in the nicest possible way. Go do the work yourself.
Yeah. Or work with us and we'll figure it out with you. But it is that thing of like, you can't just rely on somebody else who says, oh yeah, it's just do 10 reps of this. That's their best guess, but it's just not you.
Yeah. This is the importance of working with a coach that will explain it to you. So that a good coach doesn't tell you what to do. A good coach will give you something, explain it to you, and then tell you to fuck off and play with it. and figure it out. That's what a good coach does. A good coach allows you to learn. A good coach doesn't serve it up on a plate.
Yeah. So I guess we say till next time, go fuck off and figure it out.
Yeah, fuck off and figure it out. Come back to me with what you find out. After that, then we'll take it to the next step.
Thank you for checking out this week's episode. As always, we'd appreciate if you'd like and follow or subscribe. If you have any questions or if you're interested in workshops or one-to-one coaching from Gareth and James, send us a message on the Nerve Guys Instagram page. Finally, we'd really appreciate it if you'd check out the Neuro Band, our very own product and the sponsor of this video. You'll find a link to the Neuro Band in the description of this episode.